4 months of complete silence. No matches, no press conferences, just glimpses, rumors, and a ranking quietly falling apart in the background. Now, Carlos Alcaraz is finally coming back, and what's unfolding around this comeback is bigger and messier than anyone predicted. Let's talk about what's actually confirmed, because the stakes here are higher than a simple return from injury. Back in April, at his home tournament in Barcelona, Alcaraz felt something wrong in his right wrist mid-match. He still won that round, but days later, he withdrew from his next event, and what looked like a minor precaution turned into the longest absence of his career. He missed the rest of the clay season. He missed the French Open, a tournament he'd won the year before. Then Wimbledon disappeared too. 2 Grand Slams gone, back-to-back, for a 2-time champion of both. Here's the number that actually tells the story. Alcaraz dropped over 5,000 ranking points during that stretch. Not a slide, a landslide. It was enough to let Alexander Zverev leapfrog him in the rankings for the first time since May of last year. And while Alcaraz sat at home rehabbing, Jannik Sinner did the exact opposite, sweeping Masters 1000 titles and defending his Wimbledon crown, building a lead that now sits north of 5,000 points. So the question fans have been asking for months is simple. Is this just a pause? Or is this the beginning of the end for the player who was supposed to define this entire era of tennis? Now let's talk about why this recovery took so long. Because it wasn't caution for the sake of caution. It was fear of a very specific history. Wrist injuries have quietly ended careers before. Dominic Thiem never fully recovered his prime after his. Juan Martín del Potro's whole career was defined by fighting the same kind of damage. Alcaraz's team knew that history, and it's exactly why this comeback wasn't measured in weeks. It was measured in stages. It started with the wrist essentially locked down, one of the most explosive forehands in tennis, completely still. Then came left-handed drills, just to keep some kind of rhythm without touching the injury. Only after that came light racket work with the right hand, rebuilding the stroke piece by piece, like reconstructing a machine from scratch. And through almost all of it, silence, no interviews, no detailed updates, just scattered training clips and quiet reports trickling out of Spain. That silence is exactly why this comeback hit differently once the walls finally started coming down. This past week, reports out of Spain, including from La Verdad, described Alcaraz's wrist as fully healed. After the splint, after 2 missed majors, after watching his ranking collapse in real time, his body has apparently given the green light. But here's what makes this more complicated than a simple "he's back" story. Healed and match-ready are 2 different things. Even with the green light, his team still pulled him from the Canadian Open, a tournament that could have been an easier re-entry point before Cincinnati. Fans immediately started asking the obvious question: if he's ready, why skip it? The reaction online has been split. Some fans are treating this as the most anticipated comeback of the tennis season, hyping Cincinnati as must-watch. Others are reading the caution differently, worried that skipping an easier tournament means the wrist isn't as fully healed as the reports suggest. Now let's talk about why Cincinnati specifically is the place all of this converges. Because this isn't a random tournament for Alcaraz's return. Cincinnati runs August 13th to 23rd this year, and Alcaraz walks in as the defending champion. But the way he won that title last year is a story on its own. In the 2025 final, Alcaraz raced out to a 5-love lead against Sinner, the man now sitting thousands of points ahead of him. But that final never actually finished. Sinner, visibly unwell, called for the trainer, and after just 23 minutes retired from the match entirely. And instead of celebrating a walkover win, Alcaraz walked straight over and consoled him, a moment that went viral for showing genuine respect underneath one of the sport's most intense rivalries. Now picture him walking back onto that exact court, as the defending champion, coming off the longest layoff of his career. Here's why the pressure doesn't stop there. Alcaraz isn't just returning to defend a Masters 1000 title in Cincinnati. Weeks later, he has to defend a Grand Slam, the US Open title he won last year by beating Sinner himself in the final. Think about that sequence. No competitive match in 4 months, a ranking that's collapsed, a rival playing the best tennis of his career, and he's expected to shake off the rust in Cincinnati and immediately turn around to defend a major in New York. And there's a real uncomfortable question sitting underneath all of it. What happens if the wrist sends a warning sign mid-match? Does he push through it, the way he's pushed through pain before? Or does his team pull him out immediately? unwilling to risk everything for one tournament. Nobody actually knows, and that uncertainty is exactly what makes this comeback impossible to look away from. Let's talk about what this comeback means for everyone else in the draw. Sinner has been virtually untouchable this season, sweeping Masters titles, defending Wimbledon, building a lead that seemed impossible to close. Part of that dominance has come simply because his biggest challenger was sidelined. Now imagine Sinner having to share the spotlight again, preparing for a fully healed, hungry Alcaraz walking back into the exact tournament where their last meeting ended in that emotional retirement. Could Cincinnati set up a rematch neither of them saw coming this soon? And what about Zverev, the man who climbed to number 2 while Alcaraz was out? Is he ready to defend that position against a returning champion with something to prove? Here's something else worth remembering about who Alcaraz actually is. After a brutal Cincinnati loss back in 2024, he smashed his racket in raw, visible frustration, later admitting publicly that his attitude wasn't right and vowing not to repeat it. That moment says a lot about him. Not a robotic competitor, but someone who feels every win and loss deeply. That same fire is exactly what fans are hoping returns in Cincinnati. Not the frustration, but the hunger. So here's where this actually leaves us. Carlos Alcaraz is stepping back into the arena after the longest, most uncertain absence of his career, walking straight into a title defense, then another title defense, against a field that never stopped getting better while he was gone. Nobody knows how his wrist responds under real match pressure. Nobody knows how his rivals will react to seeing him back. What we do know is that whatever happens in Cincinnati sets the tone for the rest of his season. So here's what we want to know from you. Do you think Alcaraz can defend Cincinnati after 4 months away, and somehow defend the US Open right after? Or do you think this injury has changed something in him for good? If you think he comes back stronger than ever, smash that like button. If you think this changes the shape of his whole season, let us know why down below. And if you don't want to miss a single second of this comeback, make sure you're subscribed with that notification bell turned on. Thanks for watching. This has been Tennis Exora, and we'll see you in the next one.